Welcome to the Untrapped podcast, where we give motivational and inspirational tips about life, small business, wisdom,
health, wealth, finance, relationships.
It's about being the best you that you can possibly be. Hashtag Untrapped. Welcome to the Untrapped podcast. I am your host, Keith Kalfas.
What's up? This is Keith Kalfas with the Untrapped podcast. We have an awesome guest, Mr. Daniel Miraval. He's a certified arborist, and his mission is to just bring information and education about being a professional in the green industry versus just being somebody out there trying to make a buck.
Word.
But becoming a professional. You're a certified arborist. You're a tree care safety professional.
Yeah.
And you've spoken on stages.
I'm also tree risk assessment
qualified.
Yeah,
So that's extremely important. We're here on the podcast now. We're kind of chillaxing and hanging out, and we want to tell some stories and also invite you into where you can take your career to a higher level.
Sure.
And get educated about this stuff and separate yourself.
Your job, if you stay in your job for a while, it turns into a career. And then if you really focus on the fact that, I've been doing this for a while now, I've gained some knowledge, I like what I do. What's the next step after that? I want to be a professional at this. I want to be known as this is what I do. More importantly, though, this is who I am. That's really important. I think that's something that's lacking a little bit in our industry. Typically, when we see people who are green industry professionals, a lot of times they've got PhD after their name, and that may keep people from attaining higher levels. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we talk about it.
So what if the guy immediately who's listening says, you know what, this is cool, but how is this going to make me more money? How is this going to make me get the job instead of my competition?
Well, in the beginning, you probably won't make more money on the front end, but you might make it on the back end. Part of the way you may make more money is the fact that you're starting to focus on something that you really like to do, and that starts to open your mind and inner consciousness that maybe some of the people that are in your life are not beneficial to your growth. Maybe you need to start to retract a little bit from some people. So that mindset of, I want to make some more money, I want to do better, starts to open your eyes, because you're going to start thinking, well, what can I do to make more money? What can I do to be better? Because, let's face it, there's a lot of things you need money for. Money is not the root of all evil. Really, money is the root of good. If you get a lot of it, it should be your fiduciary responsibility to make as much as you can so that you can use money as a tool to fund your dreams, to help other people. Mm-hmm. And the well never run dry.
That's beautiful. So creating value and doing the good things with it so your heart's in the right place. What about being what you call a proactive steward of the... When you said to me, become a proactive steward of the urban environment, I go, what?
You want to be on the forefront of taking care of and looking out for issues. I go to a lot of classes, and they speak about pest management. And a lot of the pests that are out there in the urban forest that are detrimental to tree populations, they're not usually located, identified, and found by trained industry experts. They're usually found by ordinary average citizens. But what we're trained to do is to get the message out so those ordinary average citizens know who to contact when they see something that looks kind of out of the ordinary. And those are usually the people that find the pests that are super invasive, that are killing trees all over the place.
Like the emerald ash borer.
Emerald ash borer, spotted lanternfly, Asian longhorn beetle. These are some seriously bad news bugs, man. They have the ability to take out entire tree populations. Not just, when you think of a tree population, you may think of when you're driving down the road that there's that undeveloped piece of property at the corner, whatever intersection, and it's like a forest in the city. No, we're talking about pulling back and looking at the city as a whole and all the trees, right down to the one that's in Mrs. Smith's front yard all by itself. All of those together, put together, that's like a tree population. Speaking of which, I always love to talk about this. Talked about a tree in the middle of Mrs. Smith's yard all by itself. Dr. John Ball from the University of South Dakota. This guy's amazing. He's really cool. He did a talk called Trees Make Good Moms. And it's about how trees will share resources with each other. So, one tree will recognize another tree needs something that the other tree has, and it will send things to the other tree underground through a network. So that tree that's in Mrs. Smith's front yard all by itself, that tree's really not happy all by itself.
So you're saying the tree will share resources with other trees?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of beneficial.
Oh, you mean they're like intelligent, like that movie Avatar?
Oh my God, yeah. Absolutely.
They have a consciousness?
Trees are physiological living organisms.
And they're intelligent.
Very intelligent. So there's a guy. I mean, I love to talk about other people because I learn from other people. Them. I love trees very much. And I love the people who have gone through great lengths to learn about other things about trees specifically. So, for example, there's a guy out of England, and his name is Duncan Slater. He's very active on LinkedIn, and he taught me something very interesting from his posts on LinkedIn, and that is something called the phenomena of natural bracing. So when you have a tree that has a central stem and a codominant stem, which is another stem in close proximity that is almost as big as the stem, as the central leader itself, a lot of times a tree will throw out another branch and create what's known as a natural brace.
It will grow another branch.
It'll grow another branch horizontally. Mm-hmm. And it kind of knows that it has there's this defect in the tree, and it throws a branch horizontally, and it wants to have an inclusion to where it supports the other stem of the tree. It's like the tree knows it has a defect and wants to try to prevent as much as possible the propensity that it's going to fail. It's
interesting how, like, if you look at a tree, not that I'm educated like you are, but I could just see as a, what's the word, a common man. a
lay person?
Yeah. As a lay person, I can look at a tree and say, oh my God, it's actually growing. And it has like the mercury inside of the thing that balances.
Like a thermostat?
Not a thermostat. It knows
switch.
That it balances itself.
Sure. Well, it's like if you put a tree in the ground kind of crooked, eventually the trunk of the tree will grow straight just through phototropism. It knows where to follow the sunlight. It knows how to grow straight. It will kind of fix itself. Trees are extremely resilient. And I guess that's where I find my connection to them. They face an enormous amount of challenges. I mean, I guess I could have been the same way as a biologist with turtles. Big mama turtle comes on the beach and she lays, I don't know how many eggs she spits out of her litter or whatever. Yeah. And then she goes back to the ocean, and then all the eggs hatch, after she buries them in the sand. Yeah. And there's that calculation of like 1 out of 100 or whatever it is. I don't know what exactly the number is, but so few make it back to the ocean. Birds come down and swoop and pick them up on their way from the beach where they were laid in their nest to the edge of the water. So I guess I could have been a person like that because my life was like that. It's like I had like a 1 in a million chance, like I want to get somewhere. But it's the same thing with trees. Trees face this enormous hardship from day one. And the crazy thing is, it's really all man-made. So for the turtles, it's the birds coming down. It's like kind of like other organisms that are after them. And with us, it's like the dumb things that we do only because we don't know. Most people just don't know, like planting trees too deeply, too much mulch, which is, a big thing for me. A lot of people just don't know what they don't know. So I kind of feel that relationship, like trees have that, they've got the deck stacked against them. And they want to live. They're incredibly resilient. They want to live. How many times have you seen a tree that's blown over? And as long as there's still some roots attached to the ground, now that trunk of the tree that's kind of almost laying on the ground starts throwing up what we call water sprouts. Most people call them suckers, but they're actually water sprouts that start coming up, and you're like growing all these trees now on the stem. The tree just wants to live. I want to live. Give me life.
That's amazing.
Word.
Like, because life wants to live, and it will do so, even in extremely
hostile environments. I came from a hostile environment. This whole industry, trees, all of that has saved my life. Every time something went bad in my life from the very beginning, trees have kind of always been there to save me. I kind of feel like those those movies where they're out in the ocean and the sharks are going to get them because they've been shipwrecked, and then the dolphins come. Like right when they need them most, the dolphins show up and save them. Trees kind of did that for me too.
What if that's part of your like karmic purpose here, is to have this symbiotic relationship with trees and to teach other humans about it and to care for them? And
well, I think that's what's happening. I mean, that's how you and I met, and now we're doing this very thing that we're doing at this very moment. Yeah, it's led up to this point. I couldn't have told you. I mean, if I want to be honest with you, I couldn't even have told you that this is how it was going to end up. That was the, some grand plan, but I know it is now.
I mean, I've never heard anybody in my entire life talk about trees like you do. Like you love trees, you care about them, and to see all these landscapers and tree guys going around just hacking up trees, and I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything. I'm just calling it as I see it, and trimming trees the wrong way and doing all these things that are in the average layperson, including myself, as I'm going through my own transformation, says like, well, who the fuck cares? I mean, the customer wants it trimmed that way, and I got to get paid, and why do you care about some tree in some lady's garden bed?
Because it's part of a bigger picture. It takes me back to people, relationships with people, an opportunity to engage with people, an opportunity to teach other people, from the landscaper who's doing something that they don't know they shouldn't be doing, to the homeowner who's accepting that because they don't know any better. I mean, you just keep doing wrong on top of wrong on top of wrong, and things just keep getting
quantify
worse.
And duplicate and multiply until that information, you give one person the wrong information when you know better or should know better. When you finally do know better, if you keep doing it, then down the road, that one thing you told one person can multiply to 10,000 people, and then you could be responsible for the death or mutation or something in our environment to the quantum effect of 10,000 down the road, all because you didn't stand up and take responsibility.
Right, and it's not in most people's DNA to research to find out if this is right or wrong. I mean, I just came from a trip to Virginia. My Virginia division just did a harvest in the Shenandoah Valley.
Because you own a real tree company, like you're a real arborist, you have real employees and equipment and trucks and chipper and lifts and...
Yeah. I'm not the only one, though. There's a lot of people who have that, and then, I mean, they've 20x'd what I'm doing is nothing compared. But, yeah, I mean, maybe you could put it that way. But anyway, I just came from that part of the country. In that part of the country, it's very common to see topping of trees. And that's a practice that's gone back from a long time ago. You say, well, what's the big deal with topping? I mean, it produces a result. Right, so people thought that topping was the right thing to do a long time ago, because when you top a tree, it does fill out. You get a response, a growth response out of that tree. But when you look at it from the scientific perspective of why are you getting that kind of growth, it's called epicormic sprouting. Why is that happening? It's happening
epicormic sprouting.
Right. I mean, you just cut a limb just anywhere. Just arbitrarily just cut it anywhere, randomly. And all these basically sprouts, they're latent buds is what they are. There's all these buds along the stem, and they're just sleeping. And they're there as a kind of a protective mechanism. Again, when I tell you...
Wait a second. There's latent buds?
Buds, yeah. Latent buds are just sleeping. Pretty much everywhere, yeah. They're just
within
sleeping.
The cells of the tree, or can you see them? Or are they... And that's why all these sprouts come out? and they're a protective mechanism.
Yeah, because you just...
Wait a second. This is the first time that you've actually told me the reason why in the biology behind it. You just said it happens, but you didn't break down. And when you just said that right now, I was like, what? Because I'm not even going to lie, in my head, okay, we trimmed a birch tree that was growing up against a house like a week and a half ago, and I remember what you said of how to cut it and make sure you prune the proper ones all the way back to the tree, and the ones that you can't go back to the codominant stem, and you cut you cut it back to a
lateral.
Yeah, so I did the best that I could, okay?
Okay.
But I know that I did a couple things that weren't proper, and in that moment I was like, oh.
But you were conscious. See,
I didn't want to call you and bug you, and I was like...
You never bug me, first of all. You're trying to learn something. And don't think for a second that I'm not doing things, or even, as a company as a whole, that a lot of us that are arborists in our company may be doing things that aren't 100%. We do what we can with the knowledge that we have, always remembering there's more to learn. So we go to conferences, we go to classes. One of the great things about living in Illinois is the Illinois Arborist Association, which is the state chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture. We are that particular chapter, and I don't know enough about the other chapters in the rest of the United States, but in Illinois, it is so focused on trying to learn more. I mean, we have advanced qualifications within our own chapter. Just within our own chapter, we have advanced qualifications. These domains, you have to get so many classes to meet a prerequisite to qualify to be like a master in that domain. I mean, it gets super deep because there's so much to learn. I mean, I guess it would be like being a mechanic. Every year a new car comes out with another electronic, this, that, or the other, and you've got to stay on top of that stuff. And I mean, it's really no different than trees, especially if you come from a background where you were taught something like topping, like I was just talking about in Virginia. You see a lot of it. It's because a lot of those guys that are down there, that's what they've learned, because when they do that to a tree, they get a result. They get response growth. The tree suddenly blows up. It's like when you prune a crabapple. How many times have you have seen someone prune a crabapple with a pair of hedge trimmers, and you're making that ball, and then Mrs. Jones comes out and she's like, man, that looks beautiful. It's nice and symmetrical.
Yeah, that's crispy now.
Right, it looks crispy. Yeah, you fucking it up, bro. But it does. It fills out nice and it looks like a ball. But see, nobody goes on the inside to look at the inside, all the crossing branches that are starting, all these heading cuts that you've made arbitrarily that now are not, the wounds aren't able to close. You've got decay going in there. Now you've got pests going in there. The tree is stressed to hell. And then all the leaves fall off in like the end of July and August. And people think, oh, it's because it's dry. No, it's not dry. The tree was stressed. It's already susceptible to something called apple scab. You've made the tree even more stressed by hacking it all to hell. And it lost all its leaves. And suddenly the homeowner's like, I hate that tree. It's dying. Come cut it down. And there's plenty of people that love to come down there and cut your crabapple down because they think it's dying too because all the leaves fell off in July. No. There's more to it. It's going to get the apple scab anyway. If it's a variety that's susceptible to it and the climate has been what's conducive to making that happen. But if you stress it by doing something like topping it, it makes it more susceptible to these kinds of problems. And it's like that for every tree.
Dude, oh my God. You know what you're making me see right now? I'm not trying to, or we're going to stay on subject, but you just made me see that this is a human condition. Human beings, we do drugs and drink fast food and act like primates and abuse each other, and we're all fucked up, and we grow up, with all these issues. And then what do? The pharmaceutical, we just pump them full of drugs. They're fucked up, pump them full, without getting to the root cause of the issue. And then when we look at us as well as like landscapers, I have this customer. He has this. It's a crabapple tree. It looks like a big ass, perfectly shaved round shrub that goes from. It's a ball that goes all the way to the ground, and it's literally a big shrub now. I'm like, okay, to trim that shrub. He goes, well, it's a crabapple tree. And I looked at it again. I go, oh, that is a crabapple. It's not anymore.
Yeah, you turned it into a shrub. It's still a tree. It's an ornamental tree. Look, I just came off a job site. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that gets me fired up. We went to a job site. We did a job for a lady. I mean, this is somebody of means. You're talking about a house that has an 8-car garage, 5-car garage on one side. That's as big as both of our houses put together, just the garage, the 5-car garage part. You go on the other side of the house, and it's a 3-car garage. That's bigger than your average 3-car garage. Anyway, so they're in a higher affluent area, so they're paying more top dollar. So as I'm doing this property evaluation with them, and I walk around one side of the property, I see this serviceberry. Depending on what part of the country you are listening to this podcast, you may know it as a shadblow. You may know it as an amelancher. I prefer amelancher myself. But it'd been topped. It'd been topped repeatedly. It had a lot of decay going on in it. And I told her there's really no saving it. You know, it's not a shrub. And when I told her what it was, so this lady is from China, and when I told her what it was, she knew that tree. She goes, "Oh, we have them they're like in Zen gardens in China all over the place. It's a beautiful tree. That can't be the same tree because this looks like a bush." And I said, "Well, someone turned it into a bush." So they're supposed to be very open and airy and very Zen-like, and this thing was very compact, crossing branches. It was horrific. So I told her, I said, basically, there's no fixing this thing. It's got to come out of here. Plus, it's too close to an actual shrub that was close by, which was a butterfly bush. So here's the thing. So it had that thing wrong. So somebody had been performing surgery on it, basically, the wrong way. When we pulled that tree out of the ground, it was very easy to pull out. It'd been there 3 years. It had very little roots, very little fine roots. And when we pulled it out, we found all these roots were J-rooted. They were all at 90-degree angles. That's because that was all from deflection when they were stepped up in the nursery from a 4x4 pea pot into a 1 or 2 gallon. When they hit the slick-walled pot, they start to deflect either sideways, up or down. You know, that was never cut off. I mean, the tree was just jacked up from the beginning. And then on top of that, it was like 6 inches too deep in the ground. And I felt really bad that I had to tell her it had to come out. And she was even more upset because she didn't even realize that was the same tree that she loved as a kid growing up in China. She's like, that's not the same tree. I'm like, I'm telling you. And then she we looked at the bark together closely, and she goes, "You're right. That is a shadblow. That is an amelancher, serviceberry, whatever you want to call it." So anyway, abiotic. Abiotic by definition is anything that happens from our touch. So there's a lot of that going on in the landscape. Abiotic. We're causing a lot of these problems.
You also said that when a tree is trimmed like a bush and then it explodes like that, all those that new growth is stimulated, it stops airflow, which can allow fungus.
Sure.
Talk about that.
Same thing with the crabapple. Again, especially crabapples, serviceberries. When you create that density inside, there's not a lot of airflow going on, and the tree can't dry out. Funguses begin to develop. You know, and
because the airflow can't flow as well, so
right.
To dry out faster, so
right.
Fungal infections start faster.
Right. So like what you just talked about, like what we do as people to create these problems. So you think about spruce decline. Spruce decline is a huge thing. So MSU, Michigan State University, just an article about spruce decline in the Midwest, Michigan, just the whole Midwest region. And like, why does that happen? Well, we create a little bit of that too. When we line a property full of spruce and we close that yard off, we create like a microclimate. Pear trellis rust. Junipers are a good host for that. So we're planting ornamental pear trees in
I go in these customers' backyards here in Michigan. So there will be like a mound. The whole backyard is closed off for privacy with trees and shrubs. and you're inside of like this utopia, and then you walk on the ground in the grass towards the backyard, your foot's sipping in the sod because it's literally just mush because all the water's sitting, and then there's fucking fungus growing up all the spruce trees, and they're turning brown, and they're falling, they're dying.
Yeah.
And it's spreading across all the trees.
Oh, definitely. When the fungal spores are active, every time it rains and the raindrops splash on the fungal spores, those spores just lift up, man, and take off of those needles and just start floating through the air and sticking to the rest of the trees. And you've got different kinds of needle cast disease. You've got SNEED, a sudden needle drop disease. You've got rhizophora. Rhizophora is something that it can take 5 years before you notice that your tree's dying. You know, it's nice and full, and then suddenly you look out the window and you're like, hey, babe, I can see the next door neighbor. I don't ever remember being able to see them rotten-ass kids running around the backyard. How come we can see over there now? Because you're losing needles on the inside of the tree. You know, or if it starts dying from the bottom, just like devoid, or at the ends of the boughs, you just start losing needles at the end. You know, it's like cytospora canker. That's something you can't fix.
So people say, well, I got to get it sprayed. It's like putting pharmaceuticals on someone who's got a deeper problem, right?
Right. So how many
you look
times
at the trees, and the landscapers piled them a mulch a foot high around the trunks of the trees, and then they're suffocating in their own.
Yeah, they can't. You can't breathe. You're burying the structural roots, and then you're burying that flare. So, not long ago, I posted a picture, a side by side, of a spruce tree. There was like 3 feet of mulch all the way up the trunk of the tree of the spruce. And this guy planted this tree like 20 years ago. And he says, you know, in the last 5 or 6 years, it's getting thinner. I can see through it. I couldn't see through it before. It's just not looking good.
So
and he had
landscapers need to do this and advise their customers, okay, we'll put down mulch, but no, we're going to pull all the mulch away from around these trees all the way out to the drip line. Or how far?
Well, that's not really feasible. You got to get it. Look,
and we're going to charge you because this is the right thing to do, and we're going to create donuts, not
volcanoes. Yeah, you don't want it to look like a volcano.
Okay.
You want it to look like a donut. So it needs to be, the mulch needs to be higher the farther out you go, and
almost nothing
near the trunk of the tree.
So the root flares.
There should be no mulch touching the trunk of the tree. That flare, that taper at the bottom should be visible, even in an evergreen. So when I post these pictures on my Instagram, on company Facebook pages,
we are at work.
People don't even see it. They're like, I didn't even know that a spruce tree had a flare. And I'm like, holy shit, just about every tree has a flare. Maybe not in the very beginning. It's called a shank when they're really small. As they get bigger, they develop that taper. But when you have one that's, 10, 12 inches at the base, that thing has a flare. Believe me, it does. And does it kill the tree overnight? No, it doesn't kill the tree overnight. But again, these are the stories we get. So as an arborist who deals with plant health care, these are the kind of calls you get. Hey, can you come out here and take a look at this tree? Me and my daughter planted an Arbor Day in 1992, and there's something wrong with it. And I looked on the internet, and it's supposed to be living for another 50 years. What's going on? And we come out there and we look, and it's buried, or it's growing into another one, or the whole yard, has been walled off with nothing but spruce. It's just bad. But it's not just that. It's not. And then you compound it with the fact that the climate is changing the way it is. What do I always tell people? People goes, why am my Colorado blue spruce doing bad? I'm like, can you back up? Say it again. Yeah, why is my Colorado? Whoop, stop right there. Where? What'd I miss? Colorado. Are we in Colorado? You ever been to Colorado? There's more than Colorado than dispensaries. It's very dry in Colorado, yo. It's not dry here. Our soils are not conducive. So anyway, you want to, the tree has challenges from the outside environment. Guess what? I relate to that Because as a human being growing up, I had a shit ton of challenges from the outside environment. Even as an adult now, on the daily, I got challenges coming in from the outside environment. But as you get older and you become aware of this kind of stuff, you start figuring out what you got to cut out. It could be your sister. Your cousin Joe could be fucking you up. Your friends and your family be the first ones to fuck you up. It's the same with the tree. I'm sure the tree's sitting in the backyard and is looking at the fucking family sitting there around the barbecue, kids running around, pulling at the branches, mom and dad out there grilling and stuff. And they're like, yo, you're killing us. You're killing us. They don't mean to do it though, right? They just know what they know. By recognition, man, you got to open up your third eye. You know what I'm saying? It's your third eye chakra open up. I know, it's deep, right?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here speechless right now.
What? Keith Kalfas speechless? Bruh, it's your podcast, son. Come on, son.
What I'm thinking about as you're talking is how, I landscape for money to pay my bills, and I've been doing this for years, and part of me fucking hates it. And then I think about all the opportunity we're all missing out on as landscapers, that we could be learning all these awesome things that are actually really fulfilling. Like, as you talk about this, I feel fulfilled. It has nothing to do with money or economics. It's nature. It's God made the trees. They're biological. It's really, to hear about these things is, it's a breath of fresh air.
Well, you said something that's important, and I know lots of people are going to listen to this to be like, they're going to back up to the mulch part. So let me get this right. I make my money and I pay my bills and my mortgage and I feed my kids and all this stuff based on the fact that I'm installing mulch. And let me get this right, Keith. You want me to tell my customer to use half as much to spread it farther away from the tree. And if they don't want to do that because it ain't good, to not do the job? But see, this is where the whole professional accreditations and certifications and all that come in. They give you some legs to stand on because you have these professional affiliations behind you that support you in what you're talking about. So you may lose out on some business in the beginning. Look, it's no different. How many tree companies start out, they run legit? No hard hats.
Starting out like that?
Yeah, they start out, they're not running legit. Lots of tree companies out there right now listening. You're not wearing hard hats, no PPE, personal protective equipment. You're not inspecting your ropes every day. Your carabiners are sticking. You're not spraying no WD-40. You check that shit every day. You got sap all up in your carabiners. They don't snap back real quick. Are you spraying lithium spray on them every day? I learned that shit at a tree climbing championship, Illinois Arborist Association. Oh, dude taught me that. We had to do gear inspection. He taught me all that, where your rings are wearing down on your saddle. So it's the same thing. We don't start out running legit. It's a process, and that's really what all this is about. If you take one thing away from this podcast, all of this is a process. You are not bad or no good or not worthy because you're not at this level. This is all a process. What's bad is when you hear a message like this and you don't take the time to look into it to see that this ain't just some bullshit I'm spitting. I ain't getting paid from saying none of this. It just comes from straight passion.
Dude, so what? Arborists. There's different levels. If you work on trees, you're an arborist.
Yeah, anybody who works on trees is an arborist. The arboriculture arborist is someone who is involved and responsible for the care of trees, plants.
You're a tree care safety professional.
Yeah, that's something that's like all safety related. Yeah, and believe me, there's a lot to learn in that sphere over there, man. There's a lot to learn.
How much schooling have you and classes have you taken? How many certifications do you have? I've
been a certified arborist since I started the process in 2012. I think it was 13 that I got certified. You need 30 CEUs or continuing education units per 3-year period to maintain your certification. Right now I'm sitting on I don't even know, probably close to 500. So 500 hours I've had of education, and I don't just I don't just show up to these joints just to like sleep. It makes me mad pissed, yo, when I go to these classes and cats are just sitting in there on their phones, like sleeping, doodling. They just show up for the CEU so they can maintain their certification. It's like, I want to just bitch slap them. Like, man, you got, I mean, because there's some great people teaching. Not me. I mean, there's some great people teaching, like some good knowledge. I just soak it up. I'm there for me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm hoping that somebody sees what I'm doing and paying attention, and they'll be like, why are you paying attention? And then I can talk like this with them, and hopefully they'll start paying attention. People are waking up.
Dude, this is awesome.
And you know, the more
There's so much more to it than just making more money.
Look, at the end of the day, we want to make the money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm one of those cats that think like...
Don't get me wrong. I mean, like...
I want to pay all my employees $100,000. I tell people this all the time. I want to pay everybody that works for me. Like, if you have a certain level of credentialing.
The reason I say that, okay, listen, let me insert this snapshot so you don't get the wrong opinion of me. When you got a pressure on you, an economic pressure on you every single fucking day, I'm going to stop cussing. I'm going to say it without cussing. When you have an economic pressure on you every single day to get into a bigger house and paint a baby's room and have good health insurance so you can have kids and you can please these people around you so you can, to saving for retirement, that can press on. You say, okay, well, I want to learn these things and I'm passionate about it, but I've got to make more money right now because ABC, XYZ. And I hate to make excuses, man. Like, you grow up economically poor, and what you're doing financially when it's directly linked to your self-esteem, I look at it, see, now I'm making it about me. I look at everything you're talking about, I'm like, dude, this is such a long path. And how can you get leverage on somebody who isn't passionate about taking the path and feels like now they have to do it? Because you want to do this. You're naturally passionate about this, right?
Yeah, it was a way out. It was a way out of everything you just said. I guess I could have done something else. But these opportunities in this industry were presented to me. Was it easy? No. Did I enjoy it? Did I like it? Yeah. As opposed to working in a warehouse. Man, I worked in a furniture store. I've worked restaurants. I did all that stuff. But this was something that was different. Lots of people weren't doing. You don't run into people all day long. Hey, what do you do, man? Oh, dude, I'm an arborist. I dig trees for a living. I operate a machine with a tree spade. I tie balls. I 10-star balls. I twist. I staple ball. I tie tops. Half of you don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
But these things were very interesting to me, and I wanted to learn about it. And I was like, let me go down this road. See, you got to look at things like, so I used to be a cross-country cyclist.
I have to say, keep saying what you're saying, but I have to say, because I'm actually interested in everything you're talking about. Like, I'm fascinated by biology and by how God made these trees and the spirit. Like, you can tell, I can't help it. I'm really actually feeling a passion for what you're talking about. And I'm like, no. So keep going.
I was going to say, I used to be a cross-country cyclist. So I'd ride century rides, 100 miles at a time. And I've done this in multiple states.
I never do that. That's awesome.
I rode from Marathon to Key West, from Pahrump, Nevada to Death Valley, Stovepipe Wells through Death Valley. Anyway, when you're riding and you're 80 miles into the ride and your ass is hurting and you've been sitting on your nuts for 7 hours, you start asking yourself, why are you doing this? And you start looking for reasons not to quit. So you look down at the tire of the bike that you're riding, and if you're on a paved road with, the center lines with the markers, the yellow dots in the middle of the road, you start saying, I'm gonna make it 5 more of those. So you're cutting off chunks of real estate. So this is kind of the same thing. You're cutting off chunks of real estate as you're going. It's a process, man. But everything's a process. Look, if you're landscaping right now, if you just mow and blow, and you're like, man, this is like a lot. What do you do when you go home? What do you?
Grass is hard ass work, dude.
I've done it. I started out that way. How do you think I got into this? I started out the same way, bro, in St. Clair Shores, Marvin's Gardens. I started out like that. Just like that.
You were walking behind a walk behind and weed whipping and cutting grass.
Yes. I've done all of that. Edging, installing edging. You know how we used to make our beds? We used to lay out some garden hose. So you know, because it's flexible.
Yeah.
And then you have all your little contours of your bed. And you take some spray paint and you just follow the garden hose around.
Oh, that's so smart.
And you come on, man. It's good.
Dude, I never thought of that. I'm going to go out there with like a string creating a radius and then connecting the radius so the curves are proper. You just lay out garden hose.
Yeah, and then you take a half moon edger. I done all that shit, man. I done all of that. But my turning point was I was even though I was in trouble, I wasn't in trouble with like my driver license because I knew that at least I had that. That didn't mean I wasn't like in cases and shit and in trouble, but at least I didn't lose my license. So I was the one guy, and I never smoked weed at work. I never get high in the trees at work. You know, what I did after work was after work, but I never did that shit on the job. Everybody else did that. So I was the only guy that could drive to go pick up the plants. And I'd always be like, where does them shits come from? All these trees, all these plants and pots and baskets, and where the hell did they get this from? Because I don't see nowhere around here that these things could come from. Where did it come from? And I just, I wanted to learn more and more and more. So it's the same, man, it's all process. It's just a process. What do you do when you go home? You don't think when I went home I'm tired? You don't think I know what it's like to have grass clippings in my pants, to have my sneakers permanently green, socks that you only wear for cutting grass because they're green, and I never wear no colored socks. That's a good way to get fungal infections in your feet,
What?
Yeah, you got to wear white socks, man. The dye that's in the colored socks. I know a lot of cats used to do that. They used to wear green socks if they could find them, or brown socks, black socks. You don't ever wear that if you work outside. Look, it's no different. I'll give you some tips. When you're driving to work and it's cold as shit and you got that floorboard heat going, do not have your boots on and laced up. Your feet will sweat. And then when you get out of your car, you're out of your truck to the job site, and then you're working outside, you will freeze to death. Your feet will be cold all day because they're wet. You wear some fucking socks and house shoes, some slippers or some joints while you're driving to work. And then and then you put your boots underneath the dashboard.
My friend who's an arborist, he wears comfy ass house slippers while he's driving.
Yeah.
He gets out in slippers. Everybody's like, "What the fuck?"
He's smart as fuck.
Then he laces on his work boots.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he's done, he puts his house slippers back on.
Mm-hmm. The whole time you're driving to work, 20, 30 minutes, however far it is to work, you got your dabadoos all bunned up in your boots, heat all blowing on them. You don't even realize your fucking shit's getting all wet on the inside. You're sweating. Then you get out and you start working in 30-degree weather and your feet are frozen. Abiotic, see? The things that people do to themselves, to other living organisms, to each other. See, this all ties into trees. I guess some people who are into animals could probably say the same thing when it comes to animals, if you was passionate about animals. But I don't know. Dogs and cats really don't affect the environment the way trees do. I'm just saying.
My wife, I didn't look at animals the way I do now. Like, she loves them as a spiritual being and a family member, like pure bonding, and like I just thought it's just a dog. And I always loved animals. Don't get me wrong, right? But this is different. Like, it's very cool to meet people and know people who, when you can put a microscope on something and zoom down and look at the biology of it and break it down and understand that we are connected to it. We are, like, we're all one, we're all together. Then you have a more healthy respect. And I think the thing that pulled me in to wanting to learn more about this was you scaring the shit out of me, talking about some of the trouble. And, I don't even want to go there in this podcast because we're But
Well, I told you, I mean, the cut and dry of it was this. What you're doing to help people and raise awareness and show people a way out of their own situation is extremely admirable. And what I told you when I hit you up years ago, because I seen some things that maybe wasn't the right thing, you know, I came at it from the approach that, again, what you're doing is a good thing. Your message is excellent. But now as you attract this attention and as you gain this following, you have a responsibility now to promote what you're talking about. And you don't need to know, so you just hand it off to somebody else. Look, it's no different than me. I mean, this is your first step of kind of handing it off a little bit to someone else, such as myself. We're going to get to a point where we're going to have to hand this off to somebody else. Because there's going to be the 1% who listen to this who are going to say, like, I only know X. That's true. I don't claim, just like I know you don't claim. That's the thing. Going back to you, you never claim to know it all. So I take it one step farther and I say, all I'm trying to do is bridge the gap between education and the practical knowledge that I have. That's really all I can speak on. And I can lightly touch on some other things. But I don't know everything. And them patches, you always ask me about the patches, why I rep them patches. I mean, that's just a display of professionalism. And that's my uniform. That's my shield to show the world that I've gone this extra step. To me, it means a lot. To me, it's no different than the lawyer who sits up in his penthouse office building or the CPA or whatever. They got all their certifications up on the wall. You know, I don't have that. I got this though, and that means a lot to me. And I want to show it to the world, and I want to attract others who maybe that would help them too. So you ain't doing nothing wrong. I mean, the biggest jump you're making is, you know, reaching out to others who maybe know a little bit. Like where you stop, these other people pick up. That makes you a big man. Big responsibility, bro.
that's cool. I'm excited. I want to interview all types of professionals now.
Should
put them on this podcast and create a wealth of information, a wellspring where people can drink from and go on and then become successful and show it to others. Each one reach one.
Totally. I'm down.
So where can people go to get more information if they want to learn or take a class or go online to just plant the seed about becoming a professional, a certified arborist?
So I get this question a lot. So let's start with this. Start on your state level. So let's say you're a landscaper. Let's say you're in Michigan, for example, and you're a landscaper. And you're like, I want to go down this path of learning some more. You could join the Michigan Nursery Landscape Association, the MNLA.
The what? The MNLA.
Yeah, the Michigan Nursery and Landscape Association. That'd be one thing. And I don't know a lot about them because I'm not a member there. In Illinois, it's the ILCA, the Illinois Landscape Contractors Association. Yeah, there's membership fees involved to join, but they give you access to these classes. You know, the people that they bring in to speak, they got to pay for their transportation. They don't just come from down the road. Some of these people come from all over, like I'd mentioned Dr. John Ball. He comes from University of South Dakota. I mean, he ain't going to drive there by his own, you know, fly in on his own dime. He's got to get paid and hotel and food. And for his knowledge, he should get a little coin to spit what he knows and share it, right? So anyway, on a local level, on a state level, find out your local landscape association. And then from there, if you're already an arborist, if you're already working in trees, on trees, with trees, maybe you just remove trees. You just want to be a consummate professional in regards to safety. You just want to make sure that you and your boys and girls, or whoever's working on a site, make it home every night. You know, reach out to the TCIA, which is the Tree Care Industry Association. You know, that's a national platform. Reach out to them, and that's at tcia.org. If you already think you know a lot, you want to take the next step, you know, the next step would be ISA, arbor.org, I believe it is. Just International Society of Arboriculture. Just do a Google search on that. And, you know, go down that road. And again, none of this is free. I mean, it's going to cost you a couple $100 to get started. But It's well worth the investment.
You got to the point where you're like, the money, it doesn't even, because you want the education, you want the certification.
Now I got my guys going. I mean, I pay for them to go. My business, pays for them to go. I want them to know. That's another thing, man. If you've got people that are working for you that really care, you got to get them trained up too. You got to expose them to. I see this a lot, man. I go to conferences, and I'm gonna call some cats out right now. I see it a lot. I see business owners that rolling 20 deep in their company, and they're the only one that's certified. It's like, what, are you afraid they're going to leave? Look, they're going to leave anyway. The best thing you can do for employee retainage is expose them to this stuff and challenge them. That's when people leave you anyway. When you stop challenging them, they go. You gotta keep, because most people want a challenge. And if they can't get it from you, they're going to go find it somewhere else. So, let me call some cats out that I see doing that. You're the only one in your company rolling 5, 10, 15, 20 deep, and you're the only one I see at a conference. I mean, you got to have at least one person you can bring with you. Maybe everybody don't want to go. Maybe everybody ain't worth it. Maybe you need to cut them out. My goal is every job we're on, ISA certified arborists on site. Not we're a company with ISA certified arborists on staff. Someone's sitting back at the office, or the salesman's the certified arborist. That's not what I'm trying to build. Feel me, baby.
ISA certified arborist on site.
Yeah. On the job. I know a couple companies like that. They always make sure they got somebody certified on site. Totally. I ain't the only one. And I emulate them. They've been doing the damn thing for like 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And they grow. And they keep growing. They dominate local markets. I mean, they've paved the way for me. One thing I learned about these people that are like way up at the top, man, they don't fear you at all. They don't fear you at all. They don't look at you as competition, because they know that for every 100 that come up, like maybe one like me is gonna try to stand with them on the same stage. Everybody else falls off. Ain't got the heart, ain't got the commitment. Discipline, commitment, integrity. A lot of people don't have that. That's what's really holding you back. You're listening to all this. You need to look in the mirror. You got the discipline, you got the heart, you got the integrity? Probably not. That's why you're 32 and you still ain't where you want to be. And you keep talking about everybody holding me back. Nobody holding you back but yourself. Especially when you got this free content right here. I mean, I know me and Keith can't teach you everything, but we're trying to point you in directions. I mean, you get your refund check for IRS and you buy a pair of Jordans. It's Christmas time and you're standing in line trying to get $300 whatever. Take that money and invest it and join the ISA, $125. You get discounts now on books. Go get the ISA prep manual. Go through the 13 chapters in that book. You're off for this winter season. You're self-employed. You followed Keith's game plan. You're making more money than you've ever made. Now it's the off season. What do you usually lay back and chill? No. Lock yourself in the basement. Go to the library. Open up a book. Turn off the fucking television. Television's stupid box. They call it a program for a reason. They're programming your dome. They're programming your mind. Turn all that off. Get rid of the distractions. And don't hang on every word we're saying. This should be the only podcast you listen to. And then execute from there. You can't keep consuming people's content and be like, you're the man, I want to be like you. And then you're just standing still. That doesn't make me feel good to look back and see everyone just still standing still. We're all supposed to be moving forward as a unit, as a group.
Dude, when you talk, it's riveting. I can feel. Okay, so that's the end of this podcast. Where can people find you so you can call me up and bitch to me about how 50 people have contacted you today asking you for advice, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this?
You can hit me up on Facebook. Daniel M. Miraval, last name spelled Miraval. Same thing on Insta. LinkedIn.
Daniel Miraval on Instagram. Miraval.
LinkedIn. On Facebook, you can also look me up by my company, Green Extraction Technologies, LLC. Same thing on Insta, same thing on Twitter, same thing on YouTube.
Give a shout out in Spanish to our Latinos.
You know, I don't really speak Spanish that good, so.
I've heard you speak it just fine.
I'm just not comfortable with it because they'll come at me, bro. I'm too brown to be white, but I'm too white to be brown. They're going to hate on me. You know, that's like a whole subculture.
I had no idea.
It is.
I just know a lot of, what would I say, Latinos, a lot of Mexicans.
Sure, Latinos. So I took a class with the TCIA, brought a guy in from Cali, Noé Cardenas, and he's an instructor with the Tree Care Industry Association, and he did a class about aerial lift specialist. So that's somebody who uses like a bucket truck.
Yeah.
And the safety aspects of all of that. And he cited some study that was done that in 2006, Latinos in our industry represented like 10 or 12%. And in 2016, we were like 26, 27%. So we're becoming a dominating force in the industry. But, you know, with the current political climate and people's viewpoints of that and whatnot, it's important, especially for Latinos, to raise their professional level. You know, I'm looking for Latino board certified master arborists. I'm sure there are some out there. I don't know of any. I've never met one personally. I'd like to. I need that inspiration myself. I've publicly said it that I don't know of any. Do you know? Reaching out to other people. Do you know any? Have you seen anybody? You know, usually the answer back is, well, I'm sure there's some. I've gone through the directory. There's lots of Garcias and Hernandezes and all this kind of stuff. Maybe I should reach out to them, but just on a local level, I don't know any. So I'm gonna fix that. I'll become one. Maybe I can inspire someone else. Because that's the ultimate level. I know you've said that before in videos. Very clear that people understand that there's a difference between a certified arborist and a board certified master arborist. BCMA is the highest currently that you can go in accreditation certification with the International Society of Arboriculture. And that comes with a whole other list of responsibilities.
Damn. All right, Daniel Miraval. And that concludes this podcast. And so check us out. More podcasts. You can find us on SoundCloud, on Spreaker, YouTube, Instagram, all social media outlets. Obviously, go to keithkalfas.com. Go over to the tab that says podcast. You can find more episodes like this one. Download your favorite podcast app. You can find us there and also on iTunes. Go and leave us a positive review for the podcast. And then if you like this, reach out to me and let me know. If you have any podcast or topics you want us to talk about, reach out to me. And in the future, I'm going to do another special guest, Daniel Miraval. He's going to be in again. And this is just awesome. It's great to have you and great to talk about things on this level. And then also go on my YouTube channel, Keith Kalfas, or the Landscaping Employee Trap, and type in his name or type in Arborist, and videos with him will pop up on an entire playlist where he's doing something called an air spading. And in the future, you're considering opening up an air spading academy. What is air spading?
Air spading is using a pneumatic tool to do soil excavation. That's not harmful to the tree. Basically, you're blowing away the soil, exposing roots that are impacting the tree negatively can be removed safely often, and you're amending the soil, using it for soil fracturing, vertical mulching, trying to aerate the soil. Yeah.
See, everything you just said, fascinating to learn more about that. All right, take care, guys. Over and out.